Bring in our political editor, Darren McCaffrey, because, Darren, you were indicating that it was understood the King was in London this evening. Are we expecting Rishi Sunak to go and begin that process tonight, or will that be tomorrow morning?
So this is really interesting, and on this point we simply do not know. From what I've been told, we believe King Charles is in London this evening, that he is not necessarily here right now. I'm not entirely sure, is it around 6 p.m. the sun sets? I do not think that Rishi Sunak will want to go into Downing Street in the hours of darkness. So it will be fascinating to find out what the timetable of events are. Will it happen this afternoon? As Tom has very rightly pointed out, he is now leader of the Conservative Party, not yet Prime Minister. Will it happen this afternoon, or will they wait until tomorrow morning? On that point, we're not sure, and we believe it is down to the logistics involving His Majesty the King about when precisely he gets back to Buckingham Palace, frankly, that he can carry out his constitutional duty. And just on a point of the politics in all of this, I think that while many clearly will be disappointed in Penny Mordaunt's camp that she's not been able to push through, and there'll be some, of course, who wanted to see Boris Johnson stand and were determined to try and prevent Rishi Sunak, I think there will be relief within the Conservative Party that this has been settled today, that it is not going to drag yet again to the end of the week, and that on Wednesday, for example, it will not now be Liz Truss taking PMQs. That would have been a rather humiliating, I would have suggested, performance for her, but rather that Rishi Sunak will be in post by that stage. And I know you and Liam have been talking about what may well happen with the fiscal statement, whether it will come next Monday, but there is certainly pressure to try and get that done as quickly as possible, and that involves having a cabinet, because it involves big spending, departmental spending decisions that will need a cabinet in place, and there will be questions now about who will serve in those positions beyond Jeremy Hunt, who is almost certainly going to remain as Chancellor. Who will be the Foreign Secretary, for example? Could it be Penny Mordaunt? Will Rishi Sunak reach out and include Boris Johnson's supporters in that cabinet? I suspect he will have to, learning the lessons from Liz Truss. And where will he place some of his supporters? People like Dominic Raab, I would expect, the former Deputy Prime Minister, will be back in cabinet, having been a very loyal lieutenant to Rishi Sunak in both campaigns over the last couple of months, maybe even people like Gavin Williamson. So it's going to be a fascinating time, but we do await that timetable.
Right. And already reaction coming in, Darren. Lib Dem leader Ed Davey accusing the Tories of installing another out-of-touch Prime Minister, reiterating those calls for a general election. But does Rishi Sunak now, as fiscally responsible, was one of the terms used, by the Tories sometime towards this general election in, 2 years' time? Or will it be more immediate?
I mean, I think where we are at the moment, the Conservative Party will not want an election. They are still substantially behind in the polls, 20, 30 points, depends which poll you look at, but they would be looking at electoral oblivion almost if they were to go to the country right now. I think there is an argument clearly for Rishi Sunak and Jeremy Hunt to make that, given where we are with the economy, now would not be the time for an election. It would be a time for stability, frankly, in many regards. So I think we're not likely to see an election anytime soon. You know, clearly the opposition parties have got a point. We have now seen a change of Prime Minister twice without a general election. That is never, ever happens, as far as I know, certainly in modern British politics. And many feel out there in the country that it should be up to the British public to decide who the Prime Minister is. But we do, of course, live in a parliamentary democracy, and at the end of the day, it is MPs who decides who the Prime Minister is, who can hold the confidence of Parliament, of the House of Commons, and that is why Rishi Sunak, having overwhelmingly won this race amongst Conservative MPs, will now be the Prime Minister. So I suspect we won't see an election anytime soon. Clearly the opposition will make hay with this. Let me be frank, I think that Rishi Sunak is going to prove to be a very formidable Prime Minister, and actually for Keir Starmer, he is going to face someone at the dispatch box and in media interviews who is a good performer, a good communicator, who's clearly on top of the economic brief. And I think for Labour this will prove to be quite a tricky time, though of course We know the government have got some very, very, very tough decisions to make when it comes to public spending. There will be a sense that we may well be returning to austerity, and being that far behind in the polls will be difficult even for the best of politicians. But as I say, quite an extraordinary moment here in Downing Street as we wait to find out what precisely may happen this afternoon or tomorrow, that we will be welcoming in the third Prime Minister in the space of 7 weeks.